What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of Baseball Talk. Today, we're talking about the AL Central. More specifically, we're talking about the Cleveland Indians today. Currently second in the AL Central to the Chicago White Sox. Yes, a very fun, exciting team, Chicago White Sox. But Minnesota Twins, not very good this year. But here we are, Cleveland Indians. They lose Francisco Lindor, and everyone suspects, hey, maybe they're not going to be that good anymore. But Indians, man, they always seem to be a competitive team. They are a pitching factory. We know that. The reigning AL Cy Young winner Shane Bieber, you know, almost throws a no hitter last time out. Goes 6 no-hit innings, 12 strikeouts. I think he was the first to 100 strikeouts this season. But I got somebody else here to talk about the Cleveland Indians. It is my guy from our own Last Out Media, Dan Lembke. My guy, what's going on?
How are you, Francisco? Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here, man. We got to talk about this Cleveland team, man. Look, I love pitching. I know you love pitching, good pitching too. So we got let's just right off the bat, let's talk about Shane Bieber. Because he had a bit of a rough May. It's not like Bieber. Last year we saw the historical, 60 game season that he had, winning the Cy Young. How important is it for the Indians for him to be pretty much for Shane Bieber to be Shane Bieber? How important is it for this club to see him, being one of the upper echelon pitchers in baseball?
It's got to be more important than ever at this point. In the past years, they've had the luxury of having this absolute dearth of starting pitching, Bauer, Clevenger, Kluber, so on and so forth, and they don't have that depth, that top of the line depth that they've had in past years. Aaron Savali has had a great start to the year. He reworked his delivery over the course of the winter, and he's looked very solid so far. But beyond those two guys, Bieber and Savali, there's a bit of a struggle going on trying to find some good starters innings, and they're really leaning on their bullpen right now. But like you said with Bieber, he's kind of struggled early on. He's not, I mean, Bieber struggling. He isn't quite anybody else is struggling. He's still been solid, but to say that he hasn't been the Cy Young Award type caliber pitcher that he was last year is got to be true. A lot of people are talking about him pitching deep into ball games. Terry Francona has been having him go 110, 115, 120 pitches, having to carry because they need to save that bullpen sometimes. And this last start, they kind of backed off that. He only threw 103 pitches. He went to 6 no-hit innings against Detroit, but it seems like they're going to need to back off a little bit of that and save his arm through the course of the year. It's going to be a really tough balance to kind of figure out, if I'm Terry Francona, how to kind of use him and lean on him, but not stress him out to the point that he's still good in September.
All right. So you say you're Terry Francona. What are you doing with this rotation right now? Plesac goes down with a very abnormal injury, ripping his shirt off. And now he has a non-displaced fracture in his right thumb. Also not good for my fantasy team, because he was on my fantasy team, so I had to drop him. That's most important. But what are you doing about this rotation right now, though? Because you do have Savali pitching well. Bieber, hopefully he gets back on track. You got someone like Tristan McKenzie who has potential, but seems like he's still trying to figure it out a little bit, which is anybody in the major leagues that's a young player in general. So what are you doing with this rotation right now?
First, we got so spoiled here in Cleveland with bringing these guys up, and they were just pitching the lights out from the very get-go, that this is kind of new, and it's a new challenge for Francona. I'm sure in his decades in the game, he's dealt with this before, and he'll know what to do with it. But if I'm him, if a guy is hot on a day, we got to ride him. He's got to throw 6, 7, 8 innings, because we do have one of the best bullpens in baseball, but you're going to wear them out too. The thing we're going through right now is we've got, over the course of the weekend, we're playing like a regular slate of games over the weekend against the Blue Jays, but we got a doubleheader on Monday against Chicago, big series coming up. So we've got, we haven't had an off day. Somebody's got to eat some innings. And last night was a bit of a disaster. Eli Morgan came up, rookie pitcher. Wind was blowing like nuts. The field elements weren't helping in his favor for kind of helping out the fielders in his pitching, but he wasn't able to get deep into the ball game, and we're off to a pretty rough start using the bullpen for this weekend series. Somebody, if somebody's effective, they got to go long, you know, and you got to kind of hope that you can lean on Bieber a bit and have him pitch efficiently. Same thing with Savali. Beyond that, it's kind of next man up. Whoever's ready to go in the minors has to come up, eat some innings, and you got to hope that you get a couple more solid starts out of someone like Tristan McKenzie, or Cal Quantrill is probably going to be moving from the bullpen to the starting rotation here in the near future. They've been trying to stretch him out. He pitched 3 innings in the game McKenzie started a couple days ago and was really solid. He was good on the bullpen too. So they're hoping they get a lift out of him. But beyond that, if a guy like Quantrill, a guy like McKenzie are pitching well, you got to ride them a little bit right now, I think.
Yeah, especially because, like, I mean, the offense has not been good. I just looked at Fangraphs this morning. They are 14th in runs scored in the American League. I mean, is this? I guess this is kind of expected. You lose Lindor. I mean, even though he wasn't really that great last year, but we know that he's probably still a premier shortstop offensively in the league, even though he hasn't really been what New York has expected of him to be this year. But going back to Cleveland, I mean, are you surprised by this production? Did you expect them to be at least a little bit better, or I mean, what's going on with the offense, man?
I couldn't say I'm surprised, unfortunately. This was going to be a very interesting year for this offense, in that obviously there was the loss of Lindor. You can't talk about this offense without mentioning that, even if you don't want to think about it as an Indians fan.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, even if him being just a little above average last year offensively, it hurts because beyond him coming into this year, you knew Jose Ramirez was going to be his MVP caliber self. At least you hoped you would. He had that weird about half a season combined a couple years ago where he just struggled, but he's been phenomenal since. Franmil Reyes, I've personally called the best right-handed power hitter this Indians team has had since Manny Ramirez. Like, he's that good. Now, he pulled his oblique about a week ago.
He did.
And he's going to be out, I think, 5 to 8 weeks. Beyond that, your other known entities, Jordan Luplow, great against lefties, has gotten the opportunity against righties this year, and has hit for power but hasn't hit for average. And beyond that, though, there's a laundry list of guys that are not, I would say they're no longer prospects, but they haven't been able to show the ability to perform at the major league level yet. Guys like Josh Naylor, Jake Bowers, Yu Chang, some of them in the minors still, Bobby Bradley. They just brought up Owen Miller, who's a middle infielder they got in the Clevenger trade. Anyway, you've got all these guys that you needed to learn something about this year. While you're trying to compete, you're also trying to reload, and you have all these guys that you needed to learn if they were major league caliber hitters or not. And out of this laundry list of guys, I put it together last night, none of them have an WRC plus above 86 this year. So all of them are struggling. A few of them haven't had like Bradley Zimmer just came up. He's only played like 2 games. A guy like Oscar Mercado hasn't even come up to the majors, but it's because he didn't make the team out of spring training. So that doesn't bode well either. So it's just, this year was trying, on one hand, it was a figuring out year, but at the same time, after they made the Lindor trade, they signed Eddie Rosario. They re-signed Cesar Hernandez, who has struggled a little bit. I was looking at his StatCast numbers yesterday. It just seems like he's hitting into some bad luck. But you added those guys, so you were trying to kind of compete, but you're trying to figure out what you got as well. And I can't say that I'm kind of surprised that they're in this real bad situation right now. Plus, they've had some injuries now. Reyes is hurt. Roberto Perez behind the plate's gotten hurt. Luplow actually just went on the DL a couple days ago with a sore ankle. So they weren't very deep. They had a bunch of guys they needed to figure out about, and so far it hasn't gone the way they would hope. And it's kind of what happens when you're kind of grasping at straws, putting a lineup together, on a budget. So.
All right, but what about, you mentioned Eddie Rosario? I mean, this guy is somebody that has gotten MVP votes the last two seasons. He's okay. I mean, he hasn't been that great. I mean, are you expecting more out of this guy? Maybe coming up here because maybe if you want to ride somebody, I think I watched a Francona interview. It might have been last night where he said like, if Eddie wants to get hot, we'll ride that because he's been that hitter the past couple of years for Minnesota. Are you disappointed in what he's done so far, and are you expecting him to maybe get it going at some point because he's been a good hitter?
He's been a professional hitter his entire career, was with Minnesota, of course. But
Right.
let me put it this way. If the Indians are going to compete this year, they're going to have Eddie Rosario hit better than he has to this point in the season.
Mm.
They're going to need that production. It was known production that they were expecting to get in order to compete, and they're going to need it, particularly with Reyes out now. That being said, he is a professional hitter. I do think he's going to at least start swinging the bat better than he has because he has struggled early on. Beyond all that, the one thing he's continued to do is drive in runs. And I know there's some debate about if RBIs are a meaningful statistic or not, but literally in the sense that if there is a guy on third and there's less than 2 outs, if there's a guy you can kind of hope is going to drive that run in on this team, Rosario is probably going to do it better than some of the other guys. He's going to put the ball in play, give himself up, and give in and get that run in. It's one thing he's kind of done regardless of kind of the struggles he's had. He's also been solid. It's good to have a guy in left field every day. We have so many other kind of moving pieces that I was just talking about that if you can kind of pencil that guy in, it's good. He just needs to produce a little more. And I'm confident he will. I mean, his track record suggests he would. There's nothing that would really have changed. He's always hit well at Progressive Field, by the way. So I gotta figure he's gonna turn it around
At some point. Yeah. So, we talked about starting pitching, we talked about the offense. Talk about, because this is the thing that excites me the most. I want to talk about this bullpen because I will turn on my MLB TV, I will turn on the Indians if I see that Emmanuel Clase or James Karinchak is pitching because their stuff is just so nasty and they're just really exciting to watch. They're the best statistically, earned run average. They're the best bullpen in the American League. What are your thoughts on this bullpen? How excited are when you watch the Indians? Are you excited as I am because you're watching this team every game? How excited are you watching this bullpen? Just talk to me about this Indians bullpen.
Well, first of all, they're the strength of the team. It does feel like if they can get a lead into the 7th or 8th inning, forget it. It's done.
Yeah.
Classic Karinchak, and even Brian Shaw, who's come back from the dead, had been with us, previously and went to Colorado, really struggled in Colorado. I believe went to Driveline over the winter and worked on some things, is using his cutter differently and is throwing like 95, 96 again. So he was a, spring training invitee, made the team and is now like the 7th inning guy. But Clase and Karinchak at the back, just incredible. Clase doing it basically as a one-pitch pitcher who's throwing a cutter at like 99 to 101, just disgusting.
Insane.
And then Karinchak, he's got the high fastball, the curveball. He can throw them on the same plane. He can ride the fastball up, really bury the curve. Both just devastating. It's must-see TV if you enjoy pitching to watch any of those three guys, really. I mentioned Quantrill a minute ago too. He's been good out of the pen. He's given them some kind of like 1 inning, 2 inning bridge type work. They're just really solid in that bullpen, and Francona really knows how to utilize a bullpen too. I mean, that's something he's done incredibly well since he came here in 2013. So, yeah, that's the strength of the team, and they just need to score a few runs, keep a lead, and then get it to those guys because they're going to win a lot of ball games if they do.
So, are you confident that maybe okay, they're second in the AL Central right now. Are you confident that they can be competitive all season long and possibly challenge the Chicago White Sox in the AL Central? And if not, maybe get a wild card spot. Is there any sort of optimism in Cleveland right now?
I've been looking for indicators on this for a while. They went to the West Coast about a week or so ago. They played Seattle and the Angels, and they went 3-4. And what I had said going into that is, because the reputation around here at this point is we just they just beat up on the AL Central, and that's what kind of keeps their record up. And then they struggle against everyone else because the AL Central outside of the White Sox right now is not particularly good.
Right.
But they went out there, they went 3-4. It really wasn't conclusive. They looked good in some games, they looked really poor in some others. They beat Otani, which was kind of cool. But but they so I've been looking for indicators in that, and nothing has really stuck out. You know, they're above 500 right now, 2 games behind the White Sox, and it just kind of feels like much more of the same, where they're beating up on the Central and then kind of just struggling. They're 7-10 in games against other divisions right now, teams outside the division. So it kind of feels like, you know, at best, this is a team that can make the playoffs, and then maybe all bets are off. You know, if you figure out the rotation a little bit, you get some guys who can pitch deep into ball games in October. You can go a long way just off your pitching, particularly in short series. So that's got to be kind of the goal. But I think they're well set up in either they're going to do that, or they're going to get to July and they're not going to be quite in it. And that's an opportunity to trade off a guy like an Eddie Rosario or Cesar Hernandez, or even maybe Shaw, and get something back for these guys so that they can continue this reload. I mean, for the fans, that's not going to be a fun August or September, but that might be where they'll be, so that in 2022, maybe they're a step closer. Maybe they are able to compete with the White Sox. And of course, the thing that I've kind of been banking on is, what are the White Sox going to do? Because that team is just constructed so bizarrely with their manager being Tony La Russa. I was joking to some people recently that if the Indians win the AL Central, I would vote for Tony La Russa as the most valuable person in MLB, because he'll have had to have tanked the White Sox. So kind of is what it is. I know that's not a conclusive answer, but the worst thing that could happen is they could be like 60-55 and kind of in it, but kind of not. And then they're kind of stuck. And you got to hope that it's either going to go one way or the other at the moment. And this is a big week right here where, kind of with like the pitching situation I was talking about, some of the injuries that have finally come in, we're going to learn if they're going to kind of stick now. I think if they start losing with the White Sox coming up, you may know one way or the other.
So what you're telling me, from what I'm hearing, is that either this team could go all the way to the World Series, or they could possibly be sellers at the deadline. Is that's what it
So
sounds like to me?
that's about as vague as you can get, right?
Okay,
So,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
truth. It's
yeah,
the stone cold truth. Is even coming into this year, they could have won 95 games. They could have won 75.
yeah.
And it just kind of depended upon, did some of these young guys play well? Was the pitching able to hold up?
Yeah.
And I know it's a bit of a cop out, but that's kind of where they're at.
Hey,
It
man.
could go any way. It's going
Hey,
to be
look, man.
exciting.
Listen, in Philly, we're not too optimistic right here. At least I'm not. We're a 500 team in my mind. So I would take the maybe go one way or going the other. I don't know, but it's baseball,
I
man. It's
I will
baseball.
say this. I'm probably giving a more optimistic view than the average fan, and it's just kind of how
Okay.
I go. But some frustration with ownership, the spending, the way that, you know, it's hard to watch teams that don't hit well to a point. There's a lot of that out in baseball right now, right?
Hmm.
It's hard. There's a little bit of frustration. There's a little bit of trading Lindor off. Um, we didn't spend in order to stay competitive very well over the last couple of years. There's some frustration, and I think a lot of people are waiting for that shoe to drop. I'm just not there where I'm like, it's definitely going to happen, because I do think there's some talent on this ball club and they can prove it.